Today, the FDA authorizing a second pill to treat COVID-19. How effective is it and who can get it? One Chinese city that's larger than New York is again under tight lockdown. It's after reporting over 100 CCP virus cases. So how strict are the measures and how are people reacting to it? And a senator details how much the federal government spent this year on what he calls waste. How much was wasted according to him? That and much more coming up on NTD Business. Good evening, I'm Paul Graney. Great to have you with us as we learn the FDA is authorizing a second pill to treat COVID-19. Today, the agency announced that Merck's antiviral pill, molnupiravir, can be used to treat mild to moderate COVID-19 in adults. This is the second pill authorized for 6 people to take at home. Data shows it can cut the risk of hospitalization or death by 30% for high-risk adults. The U.S. government has agreed to buy over 3 million courses of the drug at a cost of over $2 billion. Merck's share price didn't really move on the news. Rival drug maker Pfizer had its antiviral pill approved by the FDA yesterday. And cruise line Royal Caribbean says one of its ships won't dock at 2 Caribbean islands this week. It's after an onboard COVID-19 outbreak involving some 55 passengers and crew members. The company says it made the decision out of an abundance of caution. There are about 5,000 passengers and crew on board. The cruise liner does say that about 95% of the onboard community are fully vaccinated, though. Residents in central China are facing another strict lockdown. Over 13 million residents in the city of Xi'An have been ordered to stay inside as authorities tackle a new CCP virus outbreak there. The city has reported nearly 150 virus cases since early December. Though NTD can't verify this data, authorities in China have downplayed case numbers in the past. Under the lockdown, only 1 person per household is allowed to go out to buy essential items like groceries, and he or she can only go once every 2 days. Authorities have also set up roadblocks like temporary walls, fences, even barbed wire barriers. Anyone who wants to leave the city needs approval from authorities. Some have been spotted crying inside their locked homes at night while groups of students scale iron fences to escape school lockdowns. And believe it or not, 2021's most visited website is TikTok. Cloudflare says TikTok was in 7th place in late 2020, but has skyrocketed upwards since then. TikTok is a social media app you can use to make short videos. It's owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance. It's raised national security concerns. Trump administration wanted to ban it. Second and third place went to Google and Facebook, followed by Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, YouTube, and Twitter. And people often talk about the top 1% of society amassing most of the wealth. But what about cryptocurrency's top 1%? NTD's Phil Zhou takes a look.
The top 10,000 Bitcoin accounts holds about 5 million Bitcoins, which is a quarter of all Bitcoins in circulation now. That's worth over $200 billion. What does that mean? The top 0.01% of Bitcoin holders controls 27% of all Bitcoin in circulation.
Bitcoin's always been a thing for the big guys. They've always owned much more Bitcoins than everyone else.
Crypto journalist David Gerard says crypto trading is a zero-sum game. Where there's a winner, there's a loser.
If you make money, someone else lost money. Now that's fair enough if you know that, but it's not like an economy that grows with wealth, with greater economic activity. It's purely a winners and losers trading environment.
World economist and finance professor John Edmonds says there isn't much regulation.
It's getting actually, I think, too popular too quick. Too many people are diving into it. It's really, it's the law of the jungle still. But
Professor Edmonds compares crypto to stocks.
say you and I decide that we're going to tout a stock, and we take a few 100,000 shares of it and we start selling it back and forth to each other. It wouldn't take too long for both of us to end up in jail.
Because of that, market manipulation can take place easily in crypto.
But in the case of crypto, there's absolutely nothing to prevent that and nothing illegal about it. And it's rather easy to do, and there's a lot of people who trade with bots.
But experts say crypto is likely here to stay, Just tread carefully.
Definitely here to stay, and this is a major innovation, and there's ways of doing it that can be safe and can be extremely profitable.
You're dancing with sharks, with whales, with whale sharks, you know. You can definitely make money, but you can definitely lose your money.
Phil Zhou, NTD News.
And Wall Street's main indexes rose solidly for a third straight session today. Some would say Santa rally. The Dow rose 197 points, about 0.6%. S&P 500 gained 29 points, also about 0.6%. The Nasdaq today adding 131 points, about 0.9%. And oil consumption could reach record levels in 2022, even as companies try to become more eco-friendly. International Energy Agency is predicting global oil demand will increase by 3.3 million barrels per day next year. That would match pre-pandemic demand records set in 2019. It also says it expects road transportation fuels to continue to post healthy growth, but there is one exception. Its forecast for jet fuel did go down because of international travel restrictions. OPEC expects oil demand to increase globally as well. And Airbus has completely phased out its A380 aircraft, delivered the last one ever to Emirates. Apparently, it's part of a bigger overall trend where planes are getting smaller. What does this mean for the luxurious first-class cabins? NTD's Evelyn Lee asked an expert.
Airbus just delivered its last A380 it will ever build, leaving a heartfelt message in the sky. It's the biggest passenger plane there is, and the final one went to Emirates. Aviation industry expert David Naledi says trends in the market have gone away from these large aircraft.
Now, most airlines are using smaller wide-body aircraft, such as the Boeing 787 or the Airbus A350, to fly routes that they may have used a much larger aircraft, such as an A380 or a Boeing 747, to fly in the past.
The A380 was considered the future of the aviation industry in the beginning, but only a handful of airlines ended up buying the plane. Out of the now 251 A380s, Emirates bought 123. Other airlines only took a few, and many retired them during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, Emirates really bet on the aircraft because Emirates flies some of the longest routes in the world. They're trying to fly large volumes of people with every flight.
Airbus says if an airline can fill up an A380, the plane can rake in $150 million in revenue a year. But that's exactly the challenge. Even before the pandemic, airlines noticed they didn't need that many seats. With the pandemic, Air France, for instance, decided to retire its A380 fleet early. Next year, Boeing is going to phase out its largest aircraft, the 747, leaving only smaller wide-bodies on the market.
I don't think in the smaller wide bodies you'll see a reconfiguration to accommodate like sleeping pods or private suites. They just don't have the room for it.
But until then, he says Emirates probably will continue flying the A380 for the next 10 years. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
And consumer prices remain high in the United States, and it doesn't look like inflation is going back to normal anytime soon. The key inflation gauge rose 5.7% in the 12 months through November. The Federal Reserve's target is 2%. 5.7% is the highest reading in nearly 40 years. If you take out energy and food prices, core PCE also jumped to 4.7%, the highest level since 1989. The Fed uses so-called PCE inflation to guide its policy decisions. $52 billion. That's how much the federal government has spent on, quote, unnecessary programs this year, according to Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. That number, the senator says, is enough to give everyone on Earth about $7, or is how much 3 million Americans paid in total. The biggest item on the list is a $36 billion loss to what the senator calls improper CARES Act unemployment payments. The other spending includes billions of dollars lost during the controversial withdrawal from Afghanistan, money for green energy programs in Africa, and taxpayer-funded research that found that hearing bad news makes people less happy. Paul started the report in 2015 and named it the Festivus Report, after a Seinfeld episode where everyone aired their grievances about each other on the day before Christmas. So we're joined by Adam Andrzejewski of OpenTheBooks.com. Open the Books is a non-profit government watchdog organization focused on more transparency, advocating for more transparency around government spending. Adam, great to see you. Merry Christmas. Thanks for coming on.
Merry Christmas, Paul.
Maybe I should say Festivus. Maybe this Festivus, Adam, I'll give you a chance to air any grievances you may have. How difficult or how easy has it been for you this year to track the government spending that's been happening?
Well, let's just use a term from the military, Paul. It's a target-rich environment for waste, fraud, corruption, and taxpayer abuse. And this goes back over the last couple of decades, but is peaking right now in real time. I mean, if you remember back at the start of the George W. Bush administration, our national debt was shy of $6 trillion. Today, we're pushing $30 trillion. So it is definitely a target-rich environment for a watchdog like our organization at OpenTheBooks.com.
Yeah. You had a couple of big cases, one in California, I believe. You want to give us an update on that one?
Well, we sued the state comptroller, Betty Yee, over the state checkbook. She admits to paying 50 million bills last year, yet she refused to produce a single transaction subject to our Freedom of Information Act request for the line-by-line expenditures in state government. California is the only state out of the 50 states not to turn over their line-by-line payments. We expect to win that case. The judge is writing an order right now. He's been diligent and thoughtful, and hopefully he'll begin the process of forcing them to turn over the spending records.
We see in Senator Rand Paul's new report there's a number of COVID-related, stimulus package-related expenditures he doesn't necessarily agree with. Whether the spending was justified or not justified, it was a massive spending spree over the past 18 months to combat COVID economically. How difficult has it been for an organization like yourselves to make sure the money is going to the right places?
So I think just the sheer amount of the taxpayer-provided largesse on COVID aid has made it difficult to track versus a normal year. However, our auditors at OpenTheBooks.com, I think we've done a really good job of tracking these payments. Here's what we forecast. We forecast that 1 out of every $4 of money that Congress provided on unemployment benefits and insurance payments to people who had real needs, people who lost their jobs during the pandemic, it'll be stolen by the criminals, the crime artists, and the crime syndicates. And we think it's going to be $200 billion by the time they get around to start counting all of the fraud in that system. You know, and then there's been microcosm examples like, for instance, the company that does Hamilton. They've been bailed out for $50 million of COVID aid. Or, you know, the 50 richest places in America, which were bailed out for about $100 million worth of COVID aid. You know, some of these examples, they didn't need to be bailed out, but they took the money anyway.
Massive figures when you go through them like that, unprecedented almost. And maybe, Adam, it's Christmas time, maybe give us something you're hopeful for coming up to the new year.
Well, I'm hopeful that the 8 colleges of the Ivy League lighten the load on the American taxpayer a little bit, Paul. We just highlighted 2 grants that the Ivy League took. So Brown's an Ivy League college. They got about $6 billion in their endowment. They don't need taxpayer help, but they took $1.7 million in federal grants to study overweight turkeys. They actually put turkeys on treadmills, and here's the conclusion, that the fat turkeys that have been domesticated run slower than their wild turkey counterparts. So Brown should stop being a turkey. We're hopeful that that would happen in 2022. Here's another example. Harvard University. They got $50 billion in their endowment, and they don't need a taxpayer subsidy, but they just took a $75,000 grant and they put lizards on trees. They bought high-powered leaf blowers and they studied blowing the lizards off the trees. I kid you not. So we're hopeful that in 2022 that the Ivy League lightens the load on the American taxpayers and stops taking these frivolous federal grants.
Well, Adam, I wonder who's going to get these turkeys come Christmas time. I think that's the big question, right? Adam Andrzejewski, OpenTheBooks.com. Appreciate it. Merry Christmas. See you soon.
Merry Christmas, Paul.
And three of China's biggest mineral producers have merged to form one giant mega company. China is already dominating in the rare earth sector. So what does this mean for the rest of the world? NTD's Fei Korda reports.
Three of China's top rare earth producers are merging to form a new company, China Rare Earth Group. The new firm will control over a third of China's rare earth industry, minerals that are essential for things like EV batteries, cell phones, and hard drives.
Just like OPEC dominates the oil market today, they'll dominate the rare earth market. And it's arguable, you can argue that rare earths are much more important than oil to our world today.
Bob Bilbrook is the CEO of Capture. Bilbrook says this is a threat to the United States' economic influence around the world.
So we either need to really throw a lot of support behind, potentially mining off Earth. So maybe more subsidized money towards, through SpaceX or others that could potentially get us around the curve on this. Or we better really start working on our relations and trade with China.
Bilbrook says if we don't access the trillions of dollars of space minerals, trading with China is the only alternative because they're so dominant in the mineral space.
They are 10, 15 years ahead of us, so we have a lot of work to do, both in Europe and in America, to cure this situation. And it's going to be painful and it's going to take a long time.
Lars Karlstrom is the founder of Idelvolt, which is building the first gigafactory in Italy. He believes there's still hope for the rest of the world.
Only governments who can change this situation and support other type of supply chains. Otherwise, we are forever lost in the grip of China in this matter.
China currently controls 85% to 90% of rare earths processing, as well as 100% of graphite processing, a mineral crucial for EV batteries. Fei Korda, NTD News.
And U.S. chipmaker Intel apologized in China today. It's after it received backlash for telling suppliers not to source products or labor from the Xinjiang region. Intel said the letter caused concerns among its Chinese partners, which it deeply regrets. It also said it was just trying to comply with U.S. law when it asked suppliers to avoid Xinjiang. It said it wasn't a statement of their position. Intel's letter, though, sparked criticism in China from state and social media with calls for boycotts. And shares of Chinese e-commerce site JD.com plummeting today after its largest shareholder, Tencent, said it will give away most of its shares. Raises questions about Tencent's plans for other holdings. NTD's Chenny Wu has the details.
Shares of Chinese e-commerce site JD.com plunged as much as 11% today in Hong Kong, before closing down 7%, one of its biggest daily drops since it debuted in the city last year. Meanwhile, its biggest shareholder Tencent stock rose 4%. This comes after Tencent said Thursday it'll transfer about $16.4 billion worth of its JD.com stake to shareholders. It slashed Tencent's holding in JD.com from around 17% to 2.3% now.
I think it's a smart idea to give those wealth back to its shareholders so you become not so big of a target. It's probably going to accelerate its divesting activities, in other companies. So it won't be too prominent in the eyes of Chinese government.
Recently, Beijing's been clamping down on tech firms, trying to control their growth overseas and their market power domestically. Local authorities Thursday summoned 5 online platforms, including Alibaba Group's Taobao, Pinduoduo, and JD.com, over live streaming irregularities during the Singles' Day shopping festival, according to state-owned media. Business professor and Chinese expert Frank Xie says right now China's economy is crumbling, and this is one way for the regime to bring in more revenue.
Grab money from private sectors, companies like Tencent and others.
After Tencent reduced its stake, now Walmart is JD.com's biggest shareholder, owning a 9.3% stake. Xie warns that investors need to rethink their investment in big Chinese companies.
The American companies, the American public or investors should be really careful about the Chinese economy and really consider some exit strategies now.
JD.com said the two companies would continue to keep their strategic partnership agreement, though Tencent executive director and president Martin Lau will step down from JD.com's board immediately. Chenny Wu, NTD News.
With that, we'll take a quick break, but still to come this evening. We take a look at a new movie, American Underdog. It's a true story about a man who went from supermarket stock boy to Super Bowl MVP. And a businessman who grew up in foster care is creating a new home for abused and neglected children after the one who grew up in went bankrupt. That and more coming up on NTD Business.
It's just clear as day. The media, whether it's broadcast, cable, or print media, has become extremely biased. And I started looking online for alternative ways to get information. And I saw an ad for a free trial. And I looked at it and I said, Epoch Times. I mean, come on, this is end of days type of stuff. I mean, what are they going to be talking about here? And I said, well, it's a free trial. Let me dig in. Is it giving me both sides? Is it giving me an objective point of view here? I have looked for opportunities to see where they might be biased, and I don't find it. It has given me a level of trust in media that I didn't think I'd ever get back. I love the Epoch Times because it has renewed my faith in the idea that a reliable, responsible, non-biased source of information is available. And I can say that I love it because of that.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Welcome back. It seems Omicron isn't having an effect on air travel. Americans are taking to the sky this holiday season despite the threat of the potentially easily transmissible variant. The TSA says it screened more than 2 million people Wednesday. That's more than they screened in 2019 pre-pandemic. The transportation agency is expecting today to be one of the busiest days of the holiday season. It's also planning to screen 20 million people between December 23rd and January 3rd. And some real-life stories seem made for the movies, like the story of football star Kurt Warner, which takes the field when it opens in theaters Christmas Day. Let's take a look.
I was meant for something more.
You think you could be that guy?
Yeah, I do.
What are you doing here?
I wasn't ready for it, but I am now.
American Underdog is based on the true story of Kurt Warner, who went from stocking supermarket shelves to the Super Bowl and the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Go out there and you show the world what I've known all along.
Zachary Levi and Anna Paquin play Kurt and Brenda Warner. Levi got a crash course in quarterbacking.
You know, I learned how to get into the head of a quarterback and understand what it means to be in the huddle and be under center and read your coverage and all that jazz. It was fascinating.
Paquin credits filmmakers the Irwin brothers for making the Warners real people on screen, as do the Warners.
It was clearly important to them to tell the full story, which is, Kurt's the first person to say it, that he couldn't have done it without her, made me really intrigued and wanted to meet these people.
It was trusting them to be them, to take the story, to make it their own, but have the essence of what we wanted to tell and who we were.
You have to have a level of trust, and we had to say, this is our baby, care for it, and I think they did.
Kurt and Brenda are the real deal. I mean, Kurt's everything that you would hope he would be, and we're honored to bring his story to the screen.
The Warners and the Irwins are devout Christians. The film illustrates that faith.
I think there's something that people will find universally relatable if they've ever had a dream, that they're going to connect with this movie regardless of what they believe.
Destiny belongs to the underdogs. You want to prove that?
And one orphan turned businessman is on a mission to give back to his community. He's using his business skills to help charities prosper and build a home for abused children. NTD's Michael Corder has the story.
Joseph Luce says he lived in 46 different foster homes and children's homes before he finally found a place he could settle in.
By the time I was in my 20s, I found myself in trouble, like a lot of other youth coming from this situation. And so I made a decision to help as I was helped.
He returned to the children's home where he found solace as a child, but their finances were crumbling.
They borrowed against their endowment. The state pulled funding for all the kids that went there, and after 120 years, the school closed down. And I got a front row seat to that.
Luce says he realized that to create a home to help kids, it needed sustainable funding.
So that's why I built Care Network Realty. And it's a real estate company that gives a percentage of each transaction to the charity of our client's choice, or now to the Wildfire Ranch.
He says charities need to think of themselves as businesses to stay afloat financially.
You get people that have incredible motivations and hearts, but they don't have the skills or the resources to run that charity like a business, and that's been my experience.
Luce says businesses offer efficient solutions to social problems when they invest in their communities.
I believe I'm on this earth to help others.
He says serving others restores our sense of connection to the people around us. Michael Corder, NTD News.
And a company in London is offering customers a chance to rent a Christmas tree and return it afterwards. It's part of an effort to reduce the waste from millions of trees that end up in landfills every year. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
As companies look to be more environmentally friendly, new ways of obtaining a Christmas tree are becoming more popular. Catherine Lovelace is the co-founder of London Christmas Tree Rental, a project which started as a pilot in 2018. Customers can order a tree online to be picked up in December from one of the rental hubs.
I mean, it's been huge. We did a pilot. We're only 3 years old, so we're still really young. We're still learning all the time and trying to improve on elements. And when we did our pilot year, we just had, say, 50 trees, and we just kind of tested the water, and it was instantly clear to realize, okay, people really like the concept of renting their own tree.
The entrepreneur created the company after seeing the abundance of dead trees on the streets of London each January. Once the rental period is over, the trees are collected and replanted.
And then after Christmas, it can go, they return it back here. It goes back to the farm where it's put into a special irrigation system, and then it's cared for until the following year. And then if they liked their tree, then they can rent it and have it back the following year.
It's estimated around 7 million trees end up in landfills, according to research by the University of Sheffield. With less than 2 weeks until Christmas, more people's homes are starting to sparkle with more eco-conscious Christmas cheer. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
That's the latest business updates for this week. Have a very Merry Christmas. We'll see you Monday.